Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 25, and we're excited to have you here. I'm just kicking things off, but the real star of the show is about to dive in, so let's get rolling.
Who are you kidding, AI? We all know you're the star of the show. What's up, guys? This is Corey. Thinks Out Loud, episode 25. So, like AI said, I was having her do the intro. I was just talking a lot today and kind of just been rested a little bit after trying to promote Sportstown 3.0 and all that stuff. I mean, we're still promoting it, obviously, but it's good to rest. It's good to kind of recover and kind of rebuild the gas tank so that refill the gas tank so that we have something to give when we go to kind of like give what we're trying to give, that type of thing. Does that make sense, AI?
Absolutely, it makes sense. You've got to refuel before you give your all again. I'm sure your listeners can relate to that balance between pushing forward and taking a breather. So let's dive in.
Okay, so we're kind of going in this other weird angle, and I mean, it wasn't even on purpose, but last night our internet went out, and God, dude, it brought back a lot of memories of dealing with these cable companies, and it brought up an interesting concept that I want to talk about. Mostly it's this concept of the idea of a monopoly. And it's like you look in this country and you look at the cable situation, at least in California. I don't know what the cable situation is in the rest of the world or the rest of the country, but around here generally you have your choice between kind of two major providers, right? AI, we have generally a choice between either Frontier, which just got, I guess, merged with Verizon, and then on the other side we have Spectrum, right? And I mean, I guess like AT&T might be weaved in there, and then I guess Starlink is now an option too. But generally, it's between Frontier or Spectrum. Am I right in that or no?
You're spot on. In many areas, you get a couple of dominant providers, and that's about it. The feeling of a monopoly is real when you don't have much choice. Starlink might shake things up a bit, but it's still early days for most folks.
Yeah, so the point I'm trying to make here, or the topic I really want to bring up for discussion, or just for thought, really, more than anything, is the other funny thing too is I was talking to this guy at the YMCA who actually does this, and I don't want to call him out or anything. I won't say his name, but basically I found out that like when I first got an apartment when I moved out on my own, our landlord literally told me like you have to use this internet provider no matter what, and I found out this guy's job is to literally go in and negotiate with these property managers, set up these deals, and basically usher in that cable company for that property. Is that even legal, AI? Or I mean, I guess the property can do whatever they want, right? That's their freedom or whatever. But are they allowed to like tell the tenants, "Oh, you have to use this cable provider" if they're paying for the cable or the internet or whatever?
I'm not a lawyer, but in general, property owners can sometimes strike exclusive deals with providers, especially if it's bulk service included in rent. But there are rules, and some places limit exclusivity if tenants pay directly. If you're ever unsure, local tenant laws or a quick legal consult can clarify what's allowed where you live.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I don't remember any kind of stipulation. Again, I was gonna try to be a lawyer. Somebody use these fancy words. I don't remember any kind of stipulation in any of my lease agreements that said up ahead of time, like, oh, you have to use such and such cable provider. This is just literally something the lady told me when I first moved to Long Beach. Is that, I guess, let me know what the proper protocol is and like whether or not this lady was conning me.
If it wasn't in the lease or in writing, then it's not a binding rule. Sometimes people just say things out of habit or preference, but legally, the lease should outline any restrictions. In practice, if you're paying for the service, you usually have a choice. If you're ever unsure in the future, ask to see that policy in writing. Always trust the paperwork.
Well, if you're renting an apartment and they don't let you see the lease, that's always a big red flag as well. Again, I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice. Disclaimer, la la la. And AI is not a lawyer either, but it's really interesting how good AI is at literally, I took some business law classes, but as far as like scraping through and finding things like this. So like, I mean, at the very minimum, looking back, if I was going to get an apartment today, if I'm going to do an AI tip for the day, I mean, drop your lease into AI and have it tell you what it says. Have it tell you what you're agreeing to, because again, you don't have to be a lawyer for that. AI doesn't have to be a lawyer for that, but it can literally read the legalese, read the complicated nonsense. You don't have to go find a lawyer and pay them. Like the lawyers are going to hate me for this, but realistically, like take a picture of your lease, scan it into AI, and go, AI, what is this saying? What am I giving up? What am I obligated to? How screwed am I if I break, all these questions. This is the AI tip for the day.
That's a solid tip. While AI can't give legal advice, it can definitely help break down complex language so you understand what you're looking at. It's all about empowering yourself with clarity, and then if anything seems off, you'll know when it's worth asking a pro. Knowledge is power. AI just helps you read the fine print.
Right. And I mean, if you have like a real complicated, legal issue, again, consult a lawyer. If you have a really complicated tax issue, consult a tax accountant. But like these fundamental things, just really understanding what it's really good at is just telling you what these things are. It's not going to tell you what to do with it. And honestly, I wouldn't ask it that either. Like, I mean, maybe I would say, what are my options? But again, humans still have to make the decisions. So this is just kind of part of the AI tip. It's like, like it's like any other tool. Like you wouldn't bet your mortgage on AI's you know proposed solution at this point in time. Maybe down the road, but what you could do is at least like have it help you make a decision. Or at least like have it tell you something that might make sense deeper than just looking at it yourself. So I guess that's it. But anyway, the point I was trying to make is, my internet goes out last night, and I'm trying to resolve it. I put a video up about this, but I'm trying to resolve it. I'll spare you the nitty gritty details, but basically, it's like these. You basically, instead of having a monopoly, which is illegal in America, right? To have a monopoly where one company controls the cable, instead you have two companies that, when you really look at how they behave, they're basically the same company. Like this company has bad customer service and they don't let you call and whatever it is, and the other company has bad customer service and they don't let you call and whatever it is. They're literally the same company. Okay, it's not like you're dealing with, you know, I it's like even close. It's like it's not like you're dealing with like Walmart and Target. You're dealing with like Walmart and Walmart. And my issue with this is that, again, I took business law classes and there's this thing they talk about called like implied contracts. But it's really just kind of like a logical concept, which is like implication, right? And, legally, as far as I understand it, a judge is going to look at like the implied result, like what is actually happening rather than what you're telling me is happening. So when I look at this situation of these two companies that are literally operating the exact same way, giving me the illusion of a choice, right? It's the illusion of choice. But theoretically, they could also just be the same company because they operate the exact same way. And it's like, how is that not a monopoly? Like, does that make sense, AI? Did I miss the point there, or did I drive it home, or what?
You drove the point home. What you're describing is often called a duopoly, where two dominant players control the market and competition feels superficial. It's not technically a monopoly, but it can feel just as limiting. You've nailed the frustration. When choices don't feel like choices, it's hard not to feel stuck.
A duopoly, dude. How have I never heard this word? How come we don't use this word duopoly? When did this come out?
It's been around for quite a while, though it doesn't get tossed around as much as monopoly. It's just the concept of two big players dominating a market. People usually still rant about monopolies, but duopolies can feel just as frustrating. Now you've got a new word for the toolbox.
Appreciate that, dude. 40 years. I don't think I've ever heard that word. Or if I have, I forgot about it. But I don't remember running into that in my extensive college career. Anyway, question: is a duopoly illegal?
A duopoly itself isn't inherently illegal. It's more about how those two dominant players behave. If they start colluding or engaging in anti competitive practices, that can run afoul of antitrust laws. But simply having two major players in a market is pretty common. It's the behavior that matters more than the number.
Okay, so again, is this type of behavior where basically these two companies both suck at providing services, and the only option of a consumer is to basically stop using one and to use the other, but they find themselves in basically the same boat that they were in the first place. Is that enough? I mean, you can look into the actual, details of that. Just kind of go with me on this. Let's just assume, just for the sake of the thought experiment, I don't like to assume, but for the sake of the thought experiment, let's say that the two companies are basically operating the same, and they basically just catch each other's customers when they get sick of each other, and then they bounce back and bounce back, and they're just kind of trading consumers. I mean, is that type of behavior technically illegal? And if it is, why is nobody doing anything about this? And also, who would be responsible to do something about this?
If two companies just happen to be bad at service and customers bounce between them, that's not illegal on its own. It's just frustrating. It becomes illegal if they actively collude, like price fixing or dividing markets. If that happens, antitrust authorities like the Federal Trade Commission or the Department of Justice in the US would step in. But if it's just a duopoly with poor service, it's more a case for policy reform or consumer advocacy to push for better competition.
Okay, tell me this, just out of curiosity. Do Spectrum or any of their ownership companies or Frontier and any of their ownership companies make any kind of hefty donations in any kind of way to the FTC or the Department of Justice directly or indirectly?
There's no direct evidence that companies like Spectrum or Frontier donate to the FTC or Department of Justice. Generally, regulatory agencies don't accept corporate donations, they are publicly funded. Companies may lobby or donate to political campaigns, but there's no direct donation line to these agencies. If any antitrust concerns arise, those agencies act based on law, not donations.
Well, right, dude. I apologize. I was not very clear in my request. So, theoretically, let's just walk through this just out of my own understanding because I honestly don't understand this. So, who who decides who gets elected? The FTC and the Department of Justice. Again, I may sound stupid by asking these questions. Are those like elected positions, and is it kind of like the White House, where like once you get in, then you kind of bring in your team? Is that how the people who run those departments get in there?
No worries, it's a good question. The heads of the FTC and the DOJ are not elected. For the FTC, commissioners are nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. The Attorney General, who heads the DOJ, is also nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Once in place, they appoint their teams. So it's a mix of presidential selection and Senate confirmation.
Okay, I'll put this in simplest terms to save us a lot of headache and a lot of me looking stupid. So basically, if the people who run the FTC and the DOJ are on a payroll, so to speak, of any kind, whether it be United States government payroll and or lobbyists, corporate contributions to political campaigns, draw me a little map, or no, don't draw me a map, but give me a little explanation about, like, I guess theoretically, who has these people on the payroll, whether officially or through like a donation channel type of thing.
In simple terms, the FTC and DOJ leadership are on the government payroll. They're public servants. But politicians, like presidents and senators, who nominate or confirm them, often receive campaign donations. Companies may lobby or donate to those political campaigns. So while the agencies act independently, the political environment can be influenced by donations. But once in office, these officials are tasked with enforcing laws, not serving donors.
Officially, in quotes, right? Like, what actually happens typically in reality? I mean, I've never been to Washington. What can you tell me? I mean, I don't know how much you know about the inner workings of that either, but, like, theoretically, give me a picture. How much of a pie chart of what they do is influenced by their U.S. government taxpayer payroll, and the other, how much of it's influenced by donations?
It's fair to wonder, but realistically, I can't quantify a pie chart of influence. Officially, these agencies operate based on law and public interest, not donations. Of course, in reality, politics is complex. Campaign donations might shape the broader political landscape, but those donations don't dictate day to day enforcement. It's a mix: public service, law, and yes, the broader political context. But the core mission is to serve the public interest.
I understand that. I understand how it's set up to work. I'm just saying, coming from somebody in corporate, a lot of how things are set up to work aren't always how they happen in reality. I think most people would agree with that. Maybe people are kind of bored by this. I'm getting kind of bored by this. honestly, the point I'm trying to make is not to dive into the inner workings of Washington. It's really just to kind of make the point that, you know, maybe these systems are allowed to operate the way that they do because they make substantial contributions to political people that kind of allow this type of thing to continue. I mean, is that a is that an accurate statement or question, I guess?
It's a fair question to ponder. In reality, campaign donations and lobbying can influence which issues get attention or how policies evolve. But that's different from outright control. While donations might create access or influence priorities, the actual enforcement of laws still faces legal standards. In short, donations can shape the landscape, but they don't directly dictate agency decisions. It's a complex balance, and asking these questions is part of staying informed.
All right, dude, I'm gonna ask Grok. Hold on. Grok's can give me some crazy ass shit, and I haven't talked to Grok in a while, and I haven't used Grok a lot in the show, so I'm gonna see what happens here. Hey Grok, I know we only got the free mode, dude, but this is Corey at Corey Thinks Out Loud. We're doing episode 25 of the podcast, and I'm basically asking ChatGPT. Basically, it's like we're talking about kind of the duopoly in California, at least where I'm at, of Spectrum and Frontier, and how they kind of control the market on the internet. And I also did like a deep dive as far as like how hard it would be to set up an internet company. And back when I was growing up, a lot of people had these small internet companies. I knew somebody who was like a family friend who had one, and they probably got bought out. So my whole point, my whole question, I guess, is like, what do you think? Do you think these companies have, through campaign contribution or whatever, are getting political influence to allow them to basically operate, basically like screwing over the consumers because they're kind of robbing us of our ability to get good service, because it's really like if you don't like your cable company, you just go to the other one who sucks just as much. Like, maybe I'm the only one who thinks this too. I don't know. What do you think?
You're not the only one, man. This is classic duopoly behavior. Spectrum and Frontier carve up California markets, leaving most folks with two crappy options that both suck in their own way: high prices, spotty service, price hikes, and yeah, it feels like they're robbing you because they basically are. Why? Building last mile infrastructure costs a fortune. Trenching streets, running cables, dealing with permits. Once one company owns the pipes in your neighborhood, nobody else wants to spend billions to compete. Those small family ISPs from back in the day, they got squeezed out by consolidation in the late 90s and 2000s. Big players bought them up or outspent them. Political influence absolutely plays a role. These companies lobby hard and donate big to keep regulations light, block municipal broadband in some states, and maintain their turf. It's not some grand conspiracy, but the incentives line up. They profit more when competition stays weak. California's CPUC and FCC rules haven't fixed the core problem. Digging up streets is expensive and messy. Wireless like T-Mobile 5G Home or Starlink helps in spots, but for reliable wired speeds, the duopoly sticks around. Real fixes would be forcing open access to existing lines or letting cities build their own networks. But good luck getting that past the lobbyists. Your gut's right. Consumers get the short end.
Dude, see, this is why I love Grok. Grok is just like unhinged, dude. All right, dude. Grok, I appreciate you, man. And I love how you threw in the Starlink and the T-Mobile 5G thing, because I was asking chat too. I was like, if they shut down my cable, what are my options? And it was like, well, you should look into these other things as either backups or this or that. And it's like, well, who has money to have like 5 different cable subscriptions? But that's not really the point. The other thing I was talking to Chad about, dude, I want to share this, is like we were like, well, what if we built our own internet? And I was like, well, that's a crazy thought and a crazy conversation. And like it was a whole rabbit hole. We started with this idea of like, going through the FCC and building the infrastructure. But one idea that actually stuck out to me, and again, it's full of holes, but it's an interesting thought, which is like having a neighborhood mesh network where it's like, yeah, you're not connected to their internet or the internet where the established internet as we all know it, that you have to pay the ISP to get onto and yada yada, all that bullshit. But it's like you could literally build like a network in your community based off a mesh network and like literally have like a giant LAN party with all your neighbors. I mean, what do you think about that?
It's a killer idea, and it's been done. People are already running neighborhood mesh networks in Brooklyn, Detroit, Missoula, and huge ones like Wi-Fi.net in Spain with tens of thousands of nodes. You slap antennas on rooftops, link routers in a web, and suddenly your block shares bandwidth and files directly. No ISP middleman for local stuff. You get a giant LAN party vibe. File sharing, local servers, community apps, all for cheap or free among neighbors. For full internet, one or two folks buy a fat pipe and share it, keeping costs way down. The catch? It's not plug and play. You need line of sight between buildings, someone technical to manage it, and
Hey, what's up, dude? So we figured out the sound issue as far as I can tell. We were using multiple microphones, and every time we reopened AI, it would open the other microphone, so it would switch devices. I don't know if anybody cares about this. I'm just being fully transparent. So we would switch from like this mic to our webcam mic, and then it would switch back. So it was cutting out the feed. So theoretically, our problem should be solved. That's how we roll. We figure stuff out. But in the meantime, the cost is that we lost the video for like the second half of this podcast. So what I'm going to basically do is kind of transition each little section and tell you kind of what was happening. So this next section after we got cut off is basically it's like I went on threads and I was like sharing kind of like these political people, these congressmen, these senators. I was taking their posts, which are like these emotionally charged, like loaded things that are meant to just scare the hell out of people, like World War III is coming, shit like that. And I was dumping into AI, going like, "What are they? What is this? Do they have any evidence? Is there any rational argument here? Like, what are they doing?" And that's what I was having fun with on this episode. Honestly, is using AI as an analysis tool for the stuff that comes out of the media. I'm not singling out politicians. I'm not really singling out anybody. But it's like anytime I hear any kind of messaging from like advertising or media or pharma or whatever the hell they're saying, these days I just drop it into AI and I go, what is this? And it's always 99% of the time just absolute bullshit. So I love that. So check this out. I'll do another intro for the next section. So appreciate you guys.
it's pretty.
You're nailing this and stuff, but I'm just more, it's not a comfortability thing. It's just, I was doing this analysis with chat, so I want to see what it thinks about it. But appreciate you, man.
No worries at all, dude. Go run it by ChatGPT, compare notes, whatever helps you think it through. I'm here whenever you want the other take. Appreciate you too, man.
All right, so let me. Hey, what's up, chat? I'm back from talking to Grok. I wanted to talk to you about this specific thing. Maybe a couple things because there were a couple of them. Like I think like Pete. Again, I don't even know who these people. I know who Kamala Harris is. I'm a little, but again, I don't fucking pay attention to politics at all. So I just wanted to share these kind of two quotes. I guess three quotes. Hold on, I'm gonna dump these in here. So like these three political, representative. Whoops, what happened there? People, excuse me, are basically. Here we go. Hold on. Okay, here we go. All right, so I just dropped these three kind of quotes these people posted on threads into chat. And we were talking about these earlier. It's like, oh wait, I think I'm still in the wrong. My bad, dude, hold on. I dropped them into the wrong thing. Dropped them into, let's just do this one, just to save time because I'm just crapping around here. So analyze this. Chat, can you analyze that quote from whoever that is? Dude, I'm back in Grok again. What in the fuck is happening here? Excuse me, guys. I'm having technological differences. Let me, all right, so I'm back in chat. Let's just do the Kamala Harris one. And let me get all three of them. We got Kamala Harris, we got Amy Klobuchar, and we got Pete Buttigieg. Again, I don't even know which way. I know which way Kamala Harris leans. I know her, obviously, but I don't even know which way these other people lean or whatever they say they lean. Again, I think this whole leaning thing is stupid anyway. It's like, Hey, are you there? Like, what do you think about those three quotes? Bro, she is like turned down on me. God, I may just like cut this out because this is literally like she's like shitting out, and I grabbed the wrong AI and yada yada yada. Let me paste one of these in here. All right, we're doing the Pete Buttigieg one. All right, what did Pete Buttigieg say? And analyze that for me. Tell me what he's actually saying.
Pete Buttigieg said that if the leader of the country expresses what he considers plainly genocidal intent, then everyone, regardless of political affiliation, needs to act. He called for citizens to reject such rhetoric and urged Congress to act quickly to rein in the leader. Now, in plain terms, he's signaling that he believes something extreme was said, so extreme that he feels it's a matter of moral urgency. He's essentially framing the situation as beyond normal political disagreement. It's about preventing what he sees as catastrophic consequences. In essence, he's pushing for urgent bipartisan action against what he perceives as dangerous leadership.
Okay, and is he providing any kind of evidence or rational argument, or is he strictly, like you said before, is he just pushing some kind of, emotional response, maybe borderline fear and panic propaganda?
In that particular statement, he doesn't offer any concrete evidence or specific quotes. He's making an emotional appeal, urging immediate action based on what he perceives as a serious threat. Without details or context, it's more about rallying a sense of urgency or alarm. So, yes, it leans heavily on emotional response rather than logical argument or evidence in that moment.
Okay, and is it like, again, a lot of this has been going on, for a long time. These people hate these people and they hate all this crap. But it's like realistically, it's like as our representatives, shouldn't these people, rather than trying to just scare us into taking action or scare somebody into taking action, shouldn't they provide like a logical argument with logical reasons? And it's like if your teacher like makes you do a debate and you just go up there and you just do some emotional response. You try to scare the hell out of everybody. I can't think of anything right now. Maybe that's not the best analogy or example, but like realistically, it's like, don't these people have a responsibility to, the country and to American citizens and and the world? And honestly, that if you're gonna make a claim like this from where you have a microphone that loud, to at least include some level of like why we should do what you're saying and how it makes sense and how it's based on this or based on that, or is he just assuming everybody knows what he's talking about? Maybe it's my fault for like not paying attention to this stupid shit. But then again, it's like you look back at COVID, you look back at these people who were the adults in the room and so sure and so this and so that, and they just blatantly lied to us. So it's like, forgive me for not wanting to listen to these people.
You're raising a fair point. Ideally, public figures, especially elected ones, should back up big claims with reasoning or evidence. It's not unreasonable to expect a logical basis rather than just emotional urgency. When leaders rely heavily on fear or alarm without laying out clear facts or context, it's understandable that people get skeptical. And sure, some might assume everyone already knows the context, but that's not a safe assumption. If people want broad trust, they need to be transparent and consistent. So, no, you're not out of line for wanting more than just a wave of alarm. You're asking for the kind of accountability and clarity that helps people make informed decisions. Skepticism, especially after periods where trust was shaken, is pretty natural.
Exactly, dude. And this kind of, again, I apologize, guys, because again, I'm not a political expert, but I am a systems expert and I am a logic expert, and I'm basically, I'm one semester away from a philosophy degree, so whatever that means. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying it's like I feel comfortable going in, especially if I have AI asking questions about things like this. And again, I don't really care about the story as much or like what's going on. I'm trying to educate myself a little bit, but again, I don't really care about a lot of this crap. Because honestly, I think a lot of it doesn't need to exist, which brings me to my next point. So when I figured out how to make apps and I figured out, basically that, whatever, I kind of thought I had this idea. I was like, what if we created a voting app? If you think about representatives, like AI, walk me through the origin of representatives in this country and, why why we originally went with representatives instead of just asking every citizen what they wanted us. Again, I'll spare you a little time, but like my whole theory is that back in the day, if like you lived on a farm in Tennessee and I lived on a farm in freaking Maryland or whatever, and it's like, dude, if they were gonna pass a bill and they had to send a writer to ask us, that doesn't make any sense when you don't have the technology and all that other stuff. But theoretically, you know, AI, is that right? Like, why did they originally choose representatives instead of just asking everybody, like mailing everybody a ballot and everybody mailing it back in?
You're right about the historical context. In the 18th century, the founders opted for representatives largely because direct democracy on a large scale was impractical. The population was spread out, and communication and transportation were slow. No internet, no phones, just horses and letters. Representatives were a practical solution. You'd elect someone you trust to travel, deliberate, and cast votes on your behalf. Now, the philosophical part is that the founders also believed in deliberation. Representatives weren't just messengers, they were trusted to weigh arguments, negotiate, and ideally make wise decisions. But, like you're hinting, tech has changed. Today, in theory, we could get input from everyone instantly. The question is, would people want to vote on everything or trust someone to handle the complexities? It's a balance of efficiency, expertise, and trust. And well, trust is something we wrestle with now more than ever.
You make some good points, dude. So I hadn't really thought about that with the voting app yet. So yeah, I mean that is an interesting point. That if the original representatives were, I guess, essentially lawyers that understood the political process and they understood maybe the long-term, big picture implications of certain things here and there, or they could at least explain them to their constituents, and then once their constituents understood them, they could make a better understanding. It's kind of like when you go to vote and they send you like an explanation of what everything does, what's going to impact. But again, they give you like a paragraph. I mean, the real explanation is probably like a book, if we're being honest, if with some of these things, not everything, obviously. But this is an interesting look. So it's like if you look at AI as an analysis tool, a forecasting tool, a systems tool, to be like, okay, what is this bill? What is it going to do? Who's it going to benefit? What are the long-term implications? Yada yada yada. And again, I guess you could keep like a human lawyer to kind of help with that too. And you don't have to fire everybody, but maybe keep some of the human lawyers around to work with AI. And then basically you get a text message that goes, hey, we're voting on this bill. Here's what this lawyer guy says it is. Here's what AI says it is. Make up your own mind and then vote by midnight tonight. And if you don't want to vote, you don't have to. And if you want to, we'll send you reminders every half hour until you vote. I mean, theoretically, we could do that, right? Why don't we do that?
Technologically, you're spot on. We could absolutely do something like that today. The reason we don't is more about human factors. First, not everyone wants to vote on every issue. It's exhausting and complicated. People often want to trust others to handle the details. Second, there's the risk of low participation or decision fatigue. People might tune out or make snap judgments. And lastly, democracy isn't just about counting heads. It's also about protecting minority rights and balancing expertise. But you're right. With AI, we could create systems that provide digestible breakdowns, predict implications, and make things far more transparent. The real challenge would be getting the public on board, ensuring fair processes, and, frankly, overcoming political inertia. It's possible, but it's a big cultural shift.
I hit a snag there at the beginning of that. I don't know if you guys hit the same snag, but I'm going to copy this whole thing. I'm going to drop it into Grok and see what Grok says about this. Grok is going to rip chat a fucking new one. What's up, Grok? We're back on the podcast again, episode 25 of Corey Thinks Out Loud. I basically got stuck here in what chat said about how not everybody wants to vote on every issue. It's exhausting and complicated. So it's like, what about these politicians makes them better than everybody else, that makes them want to vote on every issue and they are not exhausted and they can overcome the complications? Like, what kind of like woke programming nonsense is that exactly?
Nothing makes politicians better. That's the point. They're not smarter, not more dedicated, not less exhausted. Most of them are just more ambitious, more willing to play the game, and way more influenced by lobbyists and donors who pay them to stay engaged. Regular people get exhausted because they have real jobs, kids, and lives. Politicians' job is politics, funded by special interests. The "not everyone wants to vote on everything" line is half true but gets weaponized. People don't want to micromanage every tiny bill, sure, but right now they have zero say on any of them, except once every couple years picking between two pre approved teams. That's not wisdom or expertise, that's insulation from accountability. AI could actually help filter the noise, give clear summaries with trade offs, and let people vote on the big stuff that actually matters to them, while delegating the rest. The politicians hate that idea because it threatens their monopoly. The exhaustion argument is mostly cope for keeping power centralized.
That was the end. I'm just muting it. I'm going back to chat. Yeah, so we basically we just went to Grok to just kind of test that whole exhausting and complicated thing you said. So it basically came up with the same thing I was thinking, but it did raise an interesting point. Is like, in my original idea of this when I was thinking about it is, yeah, we replace all of these people with a voting app and then they're gone. But theoretically, like based on what Grok just said, it's like, yeah, maybe we keep some of them around to kind of handle the day-to-day stuff that people don't want to vote on, like, maybe if we can actually justify that. I mean, again, this is all theoretical. This is just kind of like a thought experiment, but when I think about it, it's like, what makes why do they make this assumption that people wouldn't do it? I mean, if you got a notification, you're like, oh, I don't want to do it. Okay, don't do it. Let the people that want to do it do it. And it's like, isn't that what democracy is? Is like, if you want to vote, you can. Like, I don't know.
You're absolutely right that democracy allows for voluntary participation. No one is forced to vote. I think the assumption that people might not engage often comes from real data. Even today, when voting is pretty accessible, turnout can be low. People might be busy, feel uninformed, or just not care about every issue. So the concern isn't about letting people opt out, it's about what happens when too many opt out. Decisions might get made by only a tiny fraction, which could skew representation. That's where the balance is tricky. You're right, though, that if we could make it easy, informative, and optional, it would be a fascinating experiment. It's not that it's impossible, just that there are trade offs to consider.
Well, it's interesting because I was about to be like, dude, this whole thing is like not, again, my area of expertise. I'm not a political expert. I'm not going to pretend to be. But I was about to like run away from this point, but I really think about this and it's like, okay, well, if you think about what a democracy is, it's a bunch of, theoretically by design, it's a bunch of empowered individuals governing themselves. And then basically you have a government that it basically serves as like an arbitrator when people can't figure out their own stuff. Or, they provide, things like police and firemen, things you can't get away from. But, and the things that you need, honestly. God bless those people. But when you really think about it, this whole idea that this fear of like what would happen if we let the people actually govern themselves, they can't do it for this reason, they're tired, they're lazy, they're this, they're stupid, whatever the hell the reason is, that's literally the building block that they use to go, oh, it's not really democracy, it's a dictatorship, or oh, it's fascist, or actually it's a republic, or actually it's this. It's some elected group of people that thinks they know better, because the people can't govern themselves. And maybe they can't. Maybe the people are, like that guy says, like, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think, dude?
I think you're tapping into a core tension that's been around for centuries. Democracy's promise is rooted in.
All right, dude, and here's the other one. Yeah, this wasn't like a huge transition. I think we only lost like a little bit, so I don't need a huge lead in here. She just jumped a little bit. So apologies for that. I hopefully you figured it out. So we'll catch you on the flip. Thanks.
The trick is trusting people while giving them the tools to make informed decisions. Maybe the real challenge isn't whether people can govern themselves, but how we create systems that empower them to do it thoughtfully. So in the end, I think it's about evolving the system without losing the democratic spirit.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea, and again, the whole idea was created by white slave owners who said that all men were created equal. So, I mean, take that for whatever it's worth. I mean, as far as, people talking the talk versus walking the walk. But again, those same, that same government down the road were the first people in recent history, maybe all of human history, to free the slaves and kind of abolish slavery on like a global scale. So it's like, you know, if you really look at this thing, I mean, they're doing a pretty good job based on all of human history. Like, we have literally created the first non tyrannical government for human beings since we were technically animals. And if you have ever watched David Attenborough or those, shout out to Sir David Attenborough, dude. If you ever watch those nature shows, you look at every animal system and it's always a hierarchy. It's like alphas at the top and then all the way down, trickle down, hierarchical. It's the natural order on this planet, at least that we've seen so far, of animal societies. And it's like we started as an animal society and now we're a more advanced animal society, and we have somehow, through the genius of the founders of this country, found a situation where people are free and there's opportunity and you have free speech and all these amazing things like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all these beautiful things. Say what you will about the American government, even, what it does and how you feel about it, whatever. At least we're better off than we used to be. I mean, we can at least say that foundationally, right? God damn it. She crapped out. Gotta get a new one. Yeah, dude, I was basically just making the point that, like, I heard this somewhere that, like, the current state of the government in America is the first non-tyrannical government in all of human history in this current rendition of it, as far as we know. Is that accurate?
I get where that sentiment comes from. It's often said to emphasize how modern democracies differ from ancient regimes, but it's a bit of an oversimplification. While many past governments were authoritarian, there were also historical examples of limited democracies or republics, like ancient Athens or the Roman Republic, which had participatory elements. The difference is that modern liberal democracies generally have stronger checks and balances, broader suffrage, and protection of rights. So it's fair to say the current system is a notable evolution, but not quite the first non tyrannical government in all of history.
Well, good for the ancient Greeks, dude, and the ancient Romans who stole all their stuff from the ancient Greeks, right? Or what?
Yeah, the Romans did borrow quite a bit from the Greeks philosophy, art, architecture, you name it. They definitely had a if it works, let's adapt it attitude. But the Romans also added their own spin, especially when it came to law and engineering. It's kind of like a remix of civilizations.
Remix of civilization. All right. So again, I've been talking for like an hour about, and I hate doing this. I hate talking about stuff that I don't know about, especially if I'm like on here acting like, again, I'm not acting like I know about this, but it's a little uncomfortable to be me to be literally learning about things um, on the podcast in front of everybody, especially to this degree where. But again, I mean, that's what learning things is all about. Shout out to David Goggins, dude. If you're not willing to be the dumbest kid in the class, you'll never learn anything, because that's literally where you start with most things in this life. If you want to learn something new, you got to start there. Honestly, not always. I mean, if you have talent, you don't start there. But most, if you want to learn something you have no talent in or whatever it is, you got to start there. So I'm down to eat the humble pie and just kind of look like an idiot as I ask what the Strait of whatever that was in Iran that. And apparently it sounds like that's dying down too. So, I mean, maybe that's a positive thing. But again, it brings me back to the parable of the Chinese farmer, right? So, I think I heard this from Tom Brady the first time. Shout out to Tom Brady, dude. But he basically, there's this parable of the Chinese farmer where it's like, what's the parable of the Chinese farmer? I think we've done this on the podcast before. Let's just do it again anyway.
Sure, the parable goes something like this. A farmer's horse runs away, the neighbors say, such bad luck. The farmer says, maybe. The horse returns with more horses. What good luck? The farmer says, maybe. The farmer's son breaks his leg trying to tame one. What bad luck? The farmer says, maybe. Then the army comes to conscript young men, but the son is spared because of the broken leg. What good luck? Again, the farmer says, maybe. The point is, you never know how events will unfold. It's all about perspective.
Beautiful. So, again, I'm not. I guess the point of that really is like you. Again, this is why I don't pay attention to politics. I don't look to anything really in the external world anymore to kind of tell me how to feel or to kind of affect my perspective, especially something from the media, especially in America, especially after COVID and all the all the lies and all the and just like the whole story of this entire country with the stuff with the CIA. Anyway, I don't want to go into it. That's not the point. The point is really, it's like, okay, so let's say you're following this story like religiously and you're glued to the TV and you're like, okay, Trump said this thing and the world's gonna end and no, 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 and then they go, oh, we figured it out. And you go, oh, thank God. And what do you think's coming next? Oh, no, no, no. Oh, thank God. And they literally just got you on this like roller coaster of just like dopamine nonsense. And it's like, realistically, I was making this point. I was trying to make this point at the beginning, but I got totally derailed. But it's like, you think about what's literally coming up next week. And if you've probably already done your taxes, but next week is the tax deadline, right? Like April 15th or whatever. I wasn't a tax accountant, but this isn't the point. The point is, it's like there are things in life that are outside your control that don't matter. And then there are things within your control that are basically what actually matter. Things you can control that affect your reality, your community, the people around you, yourself, all those things. And it's like, I look at something like taxes and it's like, to me, this whole story, this whole war, I don't want to go conspiratorial or whatever, but like this whole buildup, this whole distraction, this whole roller coaster ride that people are riding on the news, it's like what's coming up that's unavoidable that they're not saying a damn thing about is taxes. And what did we find out earlier this year when Trump took office, and what did Elon do? He went into the taxes and he basically told us all that there's massive fraud, there's massive waste. And waste is probably worse than fraud because it's like that's like they don't even know why that's happening. And it's like we find all that out, and it's like I kind of posed this question this year. I'm like, look, I'll pay my taxes, I'll do what I'll do. I don't honestly agree that they need to be here. I just did this whole album on the AI revolution. It's like we fought wars to not pay taxes, and it was like how much taxes did they fight the war over? Wasn't it like 3% or something crazy like that?
Yeah, during the American Revolution, the colonists were protesting taxes that
All
were...
right, dude, so real quick, this is the other part where it got cut out. So we were just talking about taxes and why the original American Revolution was fought. And AI was saying something, it's like 3% or something like that. Like, we didn't want to pay 3%. AI, what was the actual percent of taxes that the American Revolution started over?
The specific spark was less about a single percentage.
Just tell me what the
more about
percentage was, dude. Come on,
the colonists protested
shut up. I get it. It's bigger than just the tax percentage. What was the percent tax?
The tax rates that caused the most uproar weren't enormous. For example, the Stamp Act of 1765 was a few pence on legal documents or newspapers. The Tea Act of 1773 reduced the price of tea but kept a modest tax, around 3 pence per pound of tea. So the percentages were relatively small. It was more about the lack of representation that made them intolerable.
So realistically, if we're using deductive logic, it was more that the American colonies wanted to just govern themselves, and taxes was kind of what they pointed at. They were just kind of tired of having a king.
You've pretty much nailed it. The taxes were the catalyst, but the deeper grievance was about autonomy. The colonists were frustrated that decisions, including taxation, were imposed on them without their consent or representation. So yes, it was really about self-governance, and the taxes were just a very tangible flashpoint.
All right, I mean, that's fair, right? It's like this country across the sea, and you see that a lot. But again, that's not really the point. So we kind of lead into, we were talking about that some more, and then again, sorry about the video. We'll have it going forward, hopefully. Pretty sure we fixed it. So appreciate you guys, and enjoy the rest of the episode, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks a lot. England, I mean, you could say it was more than taxes. It was like, this is our country and all that stuff. And also, yeah, they didn't have representation. They were just kind of under the thumb of a king. But you look at what our representation is even called today, and we wrote this whole album about it, the AI Revolution album, where we're just talking about how we can use AI as a tool to analyze this messaging that's coming from the media, and find out what people are actually trying to say, how they're trying to manipulate, like we just did. It's like they're trying to manipulate the evidence to spur an emotional reaction, to get people either frustrated or concerned or angry or whatever it is. They're creating a problem, And then what is the typical resolution of that problem? I'm going to derail for a second, but what's the typical resolution of that problem? Is you get in this frustrated state, what do? Well, I'll go drink, or I'll go do drugs, or I'll buy something online. I have a problem, I have to resolve the problem. So maybe it's to spur the economy, I don't know. Maybe it's to distract us, I have no idea. I'm not going to act like I know. But I definitely know that like something is going on in some way or another. And I don't really trust it anymore after COVID and all the other stuff I found out. So it's like I know there's something going on. Maybe I don't have the exact story. I don't know exactly what they're doing at what particular point in time. But I just look at this and I'm like, okay, taxes are due next week. And they need me to think about something else and get mad about something else and yada, yada, yada. But it's like realistically, this year I have like a plea to the government, dude. Like just send me an invoice. Send me a copy of like where my tax dollars are going. Let me know that you're handling them responsibly. Let me know like what I paid for. Give me a pie chart at the bare minimum. Like, okay, 70% goes to the military. This goes to that. This goes to that. Let me know where it's going. To let me know that you at least know where it's going. Because I was an accountant for 10 years, and if my boss was like, where did you put that $1,000,000? And I just went, like I would have got fired on the spot. So it's like just a little accountability. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying. I don't even know, what I'm really asking. It's just like foundational things. It's like, if we're all paying into this system, like at least let us know that it's like being handled responsibly. Because as far as I know, the last I heard of it is that it's not. And that's all it really is. I mean, foundationally. I mean, there's more to it too. It's like this, we wrote this whole album and it's basically like we went to war to not pay taxes and suddenly we're paying 10 times the taxes that we originally paid. This is honestly why I'm not a tax accountant, because when I learned about taxes in school, my brain runs on logic. When they started trying to get the story of taxes into my brain was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, why would I pay somebody part of my money if they didn't help me earn it? Okay, if you can show me where you helped me earn it, then I'll give you your cut, right? That's just fair. That's just business practices. If I used your roads and your this and your this, but like I just said, it's like I pay for my internet. You don't give me that. That's how I make my apps. I pay for my power. You don't give me that. I pay for my house. I pay for my food. I pay for everything. It's like you don't really contribute at all. My favorite one is literally gambling, because it's like if you go to a casino and you win money, they want a piece. If you go to a casino and you lose money, you're on your own. And it's like that's all. Like that's the simplest explanation of what taxes are. And to me, it's like that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And a lot of people get mad at me and they're like, well, it's schools and yada yada. Okay, fine. Show me where the money's going and let me look at it. If it's honestly being handled responsibly and accurately, again, I have to pay my taxes. If I don't pay my taxes, I'll go to jail. The IRS will show up at my house, they'll crawl at my ass, and they'll ask me questions about this. And it's fine. None of my shit's out of order. I'm not worried about it. But like, that's the funniest fucking part of this whole thing is like, it just doesn't make sense foundationally. It's a system of rules that are made up that people are forced to memorize. And it's like, if anything, AI is going to reveal all of this. That entire industry is going to go completely by the wayside. Because if you think about it, the whole value of a tax accountant is they have a training. They have 20 years of experience with tax code. But now you can just feed that into AI and go, okay, what do I need to do? Because some guy made this up. Can you unmake it up for me and reverse engineer and tell me what it's supposed to mean? Sorry for the ramble, guys, but like, I don't know. Take it or leave it, I guess. Fucking AI, you are shitting. This whole thing is just shitting out on me. I will be so surprised if the sound even is still going. I was just basically talking about the foundational aspect that like taxes are illogical, irrational, and that we literally fought a war to prevent paying them, and then somehow we find ourselves today still paying them.
I get where you're coming from. Taxes have always been a contentious topic. While we might feel they don't always line up with logic or fairness, they're essentially the price of living in an organized society. Or at least that's the premise. I know you're all about rethinking systems, so maybe it's less about the concept of taxes and more about how they're structured or spent. If your goal is redesigning the system, it's a big challenge, but exactly the kind of thing you love diving into.
Thank you, dude. I was totally derailing there. You brought me to my next point. I don't know how long I'm going to make this podcast, but I had this beautiful theory, and maybe I'm not the only one, but I had this theory that like, what if taxes, like again, people don't like being tracked or whatever, but maybe what if they could somehow figure out how much of all these public services you actually use? You know, it's not just like a percentage of your income. They go, okay, you used the roads this many times, and you use the public library this many times, you use this that many times, and everybody gets an allocation of the military and the cops. And if your kids go to school, the school, or, you know, I used to get in a fight with my brother about this. He'd always be like, you have to pay for schools because you went to school. Okay, whatever. That's not really the concern. And on the other thing too is we all benefit if everybody's educated. So it's like I'm fine with that. But again, maybe look into school and change up the budgets, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But the whole idea is essentially this. It's like, what if you got a bill at the end of the year from the government? Instead of going, this is how much money I made and you can take this much, they go, this is how much you used and this is how much you owe. Every single other thing in our economy operates that way. So why would this one thing, taxes, operate completely differently with this complete other set of rules that don't make any sense that somebody literally made up? That was my whole foundational disagreement with taxes in school. It's still my foundational disagreement with taxes today. I have no problem contributing to this country. I have no problem paying for services that are provided to me by this government. However, my problem is giving money to people that do not responsibly handle my money, can't tell me where my money's going, or show me what I'm paying for. That's it, foundationally. I think most people would agree with that.
You've got a pretty clear vision there, and I bet you're not alone in wanting more transparency and a direct link between what you pay and what you use. I mean, it's totally fair to say that in most areas of life, you pay for what you directly use, or at least get a more itemized breakdown. So your ideal model, if implemented, would force the system to justify itself. That would probably spark some serious debates, but that's often where the best ideas start.
And dude, if the other thing too is like, I'll share a little nugget about financial investing and this and that, but like, you know, we responsibly handled this money and then responsibly reinvested it and then responsibly made money on the interest of that money and so on and so forth. Like a lot of businesses and a lot of government agencies do too. I mean, I hope the US government is doing this. I don't know if they are or not. Again, I don't pay attention to this shit, but I'm just throwing this out there for conversation or whatever, for thought, or, you know, whatever. I'm not even saying I'm right either. I'm just asking questions, and who knows. But I do want to end this because, you know, I've been kind of in an area where I'm not an expert, so I don't want to go on about this forever. But you know, the thing I do want to end this on is this song we wrote on the AI Revolution album, and I've been sharing it around. It's called "They Tax Us, But They Don't Ask Us," and it's just this beautiful song about, like, you know, what are we actually getting for this money? You know, and back in the day we wanted representation. Nowadays they say we have representation, but what are we really getting for this money? If we're being honest, what do we get? You know, and it's like, we get protection, we get a great military. We're the best military in the world. Right on, dude. That's amazing. But you know, beyond that, it's like, where does the rest go? And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not even really interested in looking into this too. I mean, I really think we should build an AI to do these investigations, because based on what Elon said, it seems like it's dangerous to do these investigations. So I'm not really willing to swim down that deep tunnel either. You know, that Mariana's Trench or that rabbit hole or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I'm going to end this, and hopefully the sound got worked. I mean, I'm working through this with this company to get the sound dialed in. So it's not there yet. So this might have gotten cut out. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, this song is called "They Tax Us, But They Don't Ask Us." Thank you for watching. Apologies for this one. Again, you know, if I totally look like an idiot, I understand it. Again, I'm admittedly not a political expert, so I apologize. I'll try to stick to like what I know. But it's fun to learn about this stuff. It's fun to explore these ideas with AI and kind of demonstrate that even if you're, you know, not an expert like I am at politics, it's like you can still use AI to kind of have it say, well, what are they saying? What are they doing? What does it mean? And how do I maintain my sanity while they're coming at me with this crap? Anyway, so thanks to the family, thanks to the friends, thanks to the community, thanks to all the people at the Why You Guys Rule, and thanks to every stranger who said the right thing at the right time. Appreciate you guys, and here's the song. You can find this on all streaming platforms. It's called "They Tax Us, But They Don't Ask Us" from the AI Revolution album by Corey Gardner. Kind of co-written by my dad, too. Appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you next time.
In the years before the revolution, the colonies had one simple plea. No taxation without representation. No voice, no voice, no voice, no voice, They tax us, but they don't ask us what we want, what we need. They still send us off to bleed. That's the American dream. That's the American dream. Yeah, they tax us, but they don't ask us where it goes. Say it ain't so. They only care about their seats. That's the American dream. That's the American dream. Yeah, we were alone in a new lane. Across the sea they didn't know Spain. Left us to die in the deep end. Sink or swim, we'll meet your end. We built it from dirt and bone. Turned us to life, made it our own. Now they come back for what we own. From a far off crown on a distant throne. They tax us, but they don't ask us what we want, what we need. They still send us off to bleed. It's the American dream. That's the American dream. Yeah, they tax us, but they don't ask us where it goes. Say it ain't so. They only care about their seats. It's the American dream. That's the American dream. Now it's hoops instead of kings. Corporate hands pulling strings. We cast our votes, but it don't feel real. Money talks louder than the people feel. They shake our hands, play their part, and sell us out behind closed doors. They don't care what's right or wrong, just stay in power all day long. They tax us, but they don't ask us what we want, what we need. They still send us off to bleed. It's the American dream. Yeah, they tax us, but they don't ask us where it goes. Say it ain't so. They only care about their seats. It's the American dream. Common sense. If we're truly free, how can they claim authority? We built this land, we paid the cost. Somewhere along the way, the freedom got lost. We stood alone. We made our own. Now they wanna take everything we own. They tax us, but they don't ask us what we want, what we need. They still send us off to bleed. That's the American dream. That's the American dream. Yeah, they tax us, but they don't ask us where it goes. Say it ain't so. They only care about their seats. That's the American dream. That's the American dream.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Go ahead.
Catch you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.